Casey,
Yes.
you killed number 2 in the state last year. Was it number 2?
No. 3.
3?
Oh, only 3? We got the wrong guy on this.
Yes, you do.
Welcome back to another episode of Northwoods Whitetails podcast. I'm your host, Joey Davis. Today, I'm sitting with Casey Moore. Casey is the brains behind the operation of Johnson Woolen Mills and the products that we have created, amongst many other great folks at Johnson. But we pretty much primarily work hands-on with Casey, and he's one hell of a deer hunter. He keeps to himself. He's pretty quiet, and we can respect that. There's a lot of folks out there that are that same way, and we buttered him up enough to get on the podcast and tell a story about a great big buck this past fall. But Brent Dragon and Corey Ryder also joined me on this, so without further ado, let's dive right into it.
252.
252. How many points?
Just 6.
When you sent me the photo that night there, when you killed it, it weighed on your scale, digital scale. It weighed more than that.
It was 255.
Yeah.
That was our scale, and then the next afternoon, official was 252.
Yeah.
It was good enough.
Yeah, I'd say so. Completely clean.
It was.
That's a big one. That deer was super long.
Yeah, it was crazy long.
Yeah. You sent the teeth out, right?
Yeah, I got those back a couple weeks ago. It's only 4.5. I thought it would be older.
Huh. We were thinking it was going to be about
20.
8.5, 12.5. Corey, you have an antler that looks very similar to the buck that, looks like it's twin. But obviously must just be genetics.
Yeah, it was a shed that was a year or two old anyway when I found it. And I don't know where Casey killed this buck, but it was generally the same zone, I guess, if you will. Close enough that I thought at first that the shed was probably from, or could have been from, the same exact deer. I think we've determined with the age and everything that wouldn't line up, but the genetic similarities are so close and geographically close enough that it was certainly the buck that he shot is the lineage of the shed that I found. It has to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's identical.
It's really
yours was
interesting.
the buck that you killed though was a little bit bigger, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the math didn't add up even close. Maybe if he was 8 years old, but
Yeah.
they said it was only 4.5, so.
You know, there's a good, what was the number 1 buck in Maine? What did it weigh?
I don't, 260 something?
Yeah. Yeah.
269 maybe? I'm not sure.
There was a good chance that if you killed that buck the first time you shot at him, he might have been the biggest.
Maybe it's a week earlier.
Week earlier, you touched one off at him.
Yeah, more than one.
How many times did you shoot at him?
4.
Really?
Yeah.
You tracked him.
We did. Found his track from a road, probably, I don't know, it was later, 8 in the morning maybe. Been all over the road. A big mess, like doing a big loop, trying to catch him leaving, and I would do that, and it would just lead right back to where we started. He'd been all over.
Was he after some doe in there or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I finally sorted it out and struck off in a certain direction, and again, he was just chasing them all over. And had a doe blowing at me for a while. That calmed down. I got closer, and then I could hear her bounding off. And I'm trying to remember she kind of disappeared to my left, and then I could see a deer even further left that she couldn't get over there that fast. That was staring back at me, or I thought he was, but he was a ways off. That was the buck. And I shot then the first time. That was probably a few hours after I'd been on the track, and I didn't touch him. I got down there, and he just kind of trotted off, and ended up, if I just stayed put, he circled out and came right back through where I'd been standing.
He didn't know what you were.
Nah, he came back looking for her. And we probably crossed within 50 yards of each other.
Just couldn't
And
see
I didn't
him.
see him. Yeah, just did 180 and came right back in. And we're back in the mess again, trying to sort that out. I started to circle where the only area I hadn't been in, and I cut 2 tracks coming out of there. It's the 2 of them. And followed. They split. He went on his own. That was a good thing in my eyes. I finally got him out of there.
Did you bump him to the point where he left her? Did he breed her and left her?
Nah, I don't know. I don't know about that.
It was hindsight at that point. You weren't worried about it.
You
finally got him.
It was a hot mess. Yeah.
You got him separated, and that's all you cared about at that point.
And he took off, and I thought he was getting out of town there for a while, and then he just stopped. Like, I saw probably 50, 60 yards out, I could see an antler. Literally looked like an antler on the ground. And it was him with his head curled up on his belly, sleeping. So his antler was facing away from me. And I could just see a fork through the whips. He was laying on the backside of just, 1-inch whips. It was ridiculous. And I guess he was sleeping, and it kind of threw me off because all I could see was a fork, and it just didn't add up in my head. So I kind of hesitated there for a second, and then he must have sensed that I was there and swung his head back to look in my direction, and then I saw that it was just main beam turning, that he had some antlers on his head. And I shot when he was facing me. He took off out of there, bounding. I shot 2 more times. And he disappeared. I gave him a minute. When I went over to check the bed, there was tons of hair in the bed, which wasn't good. And then
no blood.
No blood. And then probably my second shot, there was hair everywhere again. And I could see where his foot had slipped. Like, I think I kind of knocked him sideways. But there was no blood. So I followed him the rest of the day. That day, my dad had caught up after the shooting. He caught up with me, and we followed him for a long ways, and he was running just fine. Coyotes got in. All of a sudden, coyote tracks were on top of his tracks, and then I came onto a dead moose where they'd been everywhere. Tons of coyotes, and then we're running out of snow, and he led me. I finally realized where I was, recognized the road that I'd crossed, and my dad headed back to get the truck, because we're now a long ways away, and I was going to follow it the rest of the day. And I ended up having to leave it in the water. I was trying to sort out. He entered the water and walked it for quite a ways, and I just didn't have time to figure out where he went, and I had to head back out. Figured we'd come in the next day. Well, the next day was actually a Sunday, so I just left him alone. I was kind of nervous about the coyote situation, but come to find out, I think he was just fine. I spent the next 4 or 5 days heading into that general area from different directions, just trying to cut his track. Snow disappeared, and I think what happened is he ended up, I guess it was the Monday where I headed downstream. I think he headed for deeper water and kind of headed south when I headed north. And I paralleled the brook for a long time trying to figure out see if he came out. And I crossed back. We ran into a few other deer. So the day just kind of disappeared in a hurry. But we spent the next several days just hitting different directions trying to cut his track again. I couldn't find it. It was the following Friday. So I shot at him on Saturday, and then Friday, checking another area that was probably 3/4 of a mile maybe from where I'd left him that first day. And we're checking the roads. No tracks. Went up this last road, and a small buck had walked up real fresh and had all of a sudden just, you could tell he hit a scent or something and turned into the woods. So we parked up where we could pull over easy and walked back. I knew it was a deer that didn't interest me, but I wanted to see what made him go in there. And when we did, you could see that there was older track, big buck track with a doe had crossed right there that we'd missed. And must have been later in the night. It was a much older track, but he was now following them. And the snow was disappearing, but when I'd lose the bigger track, you could find it because the smaller one was looking for them also. And we got out into the top of a cut where I was trying to sort out the tracks. Had figured it out, and we're headed in the direction, and I could hear a deer coming, and a doe came running up over the hill. Like, I knew she was being chased, and my dad was standing right next to me. And I think I even said that, like, "Oh, buck's chasing her," and pretty soon you could hear him grunting away. You could hear the buck grunting 2 or 3 times, and then he appeared, and he was at least 100 yards off through the whips, and I couldn't get a good shot, but I saw there was a little opening in some softwoods that it looked like he was going to pass through. So I just I pulled up and shot. Didn't think much of it. Jacked my shell out. He had disappeared, threw it in my pocket, and I think I even said to my dad how I don't even get mad when I miss anymore. I assumed that I missed. I don't know why, but we waited 10, 15 minutes. I think it's because I knew I had the rest of the day to follow him. Now I'd got up to him finally. And when we went down there was hair all over. My dad pointed that out. I'd gone too far back on the track just to see where he'd come up through, and there was hair all over, and probably another 20 yards, blood. And when I couldn't believe that. I was standing there, and probably 30 yards further, he was laying on the ground.
Right there.
Yeah, and it kind of explained all the things I was seeing the week before with the forked horn and the...
So come full circle, back up a little bit.
Yeah.
When you shot at that buck,
Yeah.
you'd called me, told me about the story, and you were very concerned that there was a good chance that you hit that buck in the face. Because like the face, the neck, somewhere there, because that's all you could see.
Yeah.
When you walked up to that buck when he was dead on the ground, where'd you hit him?
Yeah. Well, that side was laying on the ground, and he had another wound on his right side of his neck that was like an infection, but he was acting fine. I don't think it bothered him too bad, and that kind of threw me off at first because I knew it was the other side. And when we started taking some pictures before I even lifted his head up, but when I did lift his head, I could see that graze mark. The photo that I sent you, it looks like you slashed his neck on the left side.
Yeah.
And it answered a lot of questions.
Where you hit him.
Yeah, it made me...
Blue, obviously, like you found, pile of hair, but it opened him up.
Yeah.
And he didn't bleed at all. Just a flesh
No.
wound.
Yeah, it was weird. I wasn't finding blood.
Yeah.
I guess I did find a couple drops that go with, I believe, my second shot, that infected wound, that I think was maybe, I must have hit the trees before it. Maybe some shrapnel hit him. And there was just a couple drops out in front of his right side. You could tell it was on his neck. It was out in front of his feet. That was the first day. But when I picked his head up and saw that mark on his neck, I was happy. It all... Now I knew what my 4-pointer was.
Yeah.
There, that I thought that I couldn't understand. Even the day that we did kill him, I couldn't tell what his antlers were. They're just weird to me. It threw you off. Like if you see a deer running, you usually see the tines sticking straight up, and you instantly know, like 8-point, 10-point, kind of do the math in your head real fast. It's obvious. And this was, you're just seeing main beam with a fork at the end. But that's what I was looking at 6 days earlier when he was sleeping in his bed. And the neck, I hit him right, because I did complain all week about, and was worried that I did hit him in the face and that he was running fine, but it wasn't going to end good.
Yeah. I remember you being very, very concerned about it.
Yeah. I think you said, I think he'll be all right. I said, he will, I won't. But it was, we had some closure, put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
A giant that didn't get away.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool story. Be able to catch back up with that same buck too, right? I mean, it was what? 3/4 mile away from where you...
From where I left it, but the first day, but probably at least a couple miles from where I took his track 6 days earlier.
That's cool. It's a good story.
Yeah, it was a good... It'll be a tough one to beat.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
You told me before you went up there.
Yeah, what did I say?
Well, you told me multiple things, which I thought you were just half full of shit. But you told me multiple things. I don't need. I just want one good buck. That's what you told me. I just want one good one.
That's how.
I don't need a bunch of them.
I don't.
I just want one good one.
Yeah.
You sent me that photo, and I said, "What do you weigh?" Yeah, I would say so. Hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah. It was a good year.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you guys, the listeners, have heard a little ruckus. We had a guest join us. Who's our guest? What's your name?
Del Green.
Del Green.
Yeah.
How we doing?
I wanted to look around before I said that in case the law was here, So. I'm doing fine. This is a great. I was doing housework at home. This is a lot better.
Nancy had you vacuuming, we heard.
Let's talk about deer.
Del Green, Corey Ryder.
How do you do, Corey?
Right, nice to meet you.
Casey Moore.
Hi, Casey.
Dale, nice to meet you.
And you obviously know that guy on the couch.
Yeah, and he I know from the Maine Sportsman this year.
Oh. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was in there. He's a very humble, quiet,
I can tell.
big buck killer. Doesn't want to say boo about it.
Yeah.
And we can respect him for that. There's a lot of you guys out there that are the same way. So.
That was a nice story.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was a good one. Well, we're going to take a little break and be right back.